Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Smitha. Welcome to my channel. Today's video is all about makeup brushes. Everything that you need to know about face brushes as well as eyes brushes. The ones that you absolutely need to have according to me, and the ones you can toss out the window. And I will also cover a little bit on washing those brushes and maintaining them. So without further ado, let's get started. Assuming most of you watching this video might be beginners or want to learn more about brushes, I've kept it as simple as possible. So let's start with face brushes. The first product that I'm talking about is not really a brush, but is used as a brush. It's a beauty sponge. Beauty sponges are usually used to apply foundations or concealers. You dampen them to make it really soft and then use it all over your face to give that flawless finish. They come in different shapes and sizes. Some are large, some are small. You would have probably seen me use the larger one on my face to apply foundations. I love beauty sponges when I'm using a very thin foundation. If it's thicker, I like brushes better. I feel like when it's a thicker foundation, it doesn't blend as well with a beauty sponge. And you would have also seen me use a smaller sponge to blend out the concealers. It's very easy because it's got a pointed tip. It's very easy to get around, like under the eyes or around the nose, or just in smaller areas where the larger sponges cannot reach. The next set of brushes that I'm talking about are kabuki brushes. They come in different forms again. I usually like the flat top kabukis to apply foundation. You would have seen me apply foundation with this. The difference between a kabuki and a beauty sponge is a brush does not absorb any foundation, whereas a sponge does. And I usually like kabuki brushes when the foundation is thicker. I feel like it blends better when the foundation is thicker. For thinner foundations, again, I end up using a beauty sponge. We also have angled kabukis. These are great under the eyes or around the nostrils in smaller areas where the flat top kabukis cannot reach. And a Sigma Beauty is one that makes great angled kabuki brushes, including concealer brushes as well as foundation brushes. Next, we have the concealer brushes. Now, unless you were born with perfect skin or you have some sort of a fountain of youth in you, you'll probably need to cover some blemishes on your face, for which you need a concealer, which is like a magic eraser. And to apply it properly, you need concealer brushes. Again, we have different types of concealer brushes. The softer bristled ones, mostly synthetic, are really nice to blend out, like the e.l.f. one that I'm showing you right now. And the more angled one, like the Sigma 3D HD that you will see next, are mostly used to get into hard to reach areas like under the eyes or around the nostrils. And to be honest, you can really switch these and use it for anything that you might find useful. I use the rounder one from e.l.f. as a blending brush. Next comes the stippling brush. If you look at the bristles of the stippling brush, they're pretty wide, spread apart. They're not together like other densely packed brushes. And you can use a stippling brush to apply foundations, to blend out concealers or contours. You would have probably seen me use it to blend out my cream contour. But is this something that you absolutely need to have with you? I don't think so. Next, we will be talking about powder brushes. Again, there's different types of powder brushes. This one from MAC is actually human hair, so I don't really use it as much. The human hair brushes are thicker than the synthetic brushes. If you look at this one from Urban Decay, this is a synthetic brush. The bristles are softer, and so is this from Wet n Wild. But my favorite of the lot is this short one. It's a bamboo powder brush. You would have seen me mostly use this to apply my compact powder or sometimes even the loose powder. And the way to identify a powder brush is they're usually larger and softer than the other brushes. Next, we're talking about contouring brushes, and there's again different types of contour brushes. There's this one which has a flat top. It's more tapered. This one's from e.l.f. These ones are more dense, so it's very easy to get into your cheekbones and really chisel out your face, but because it's dense, it leaves a sharp line. You will need another brush to kind of blend it out. unless you use a more fluffier brush. Now this one has an angle to it, so it's very easy to contour, but at the same time not leave a harsh line. You don't have to use two brushes, one to contour and the other one to blend out. You can do everything with this, but the contouring is not going to be as sharp as it would be if you used a denser brush. Let's talk about some highlighting brushes. There's different types, as you can see. The rounder ones are softer, especially if they're made from synthetic, so it helps to diffuse the highlighter really well and give you that subtle glow on your face. But I usually use this to fix a concealer under my eyes or around my nostrils in those hard to reach areas. And then there's the flatter brushes, which are more dense, and they give a stronger look to your face with stronger highlighter. It's almost like that Instagram highlight where you want to make it look really bright and illuminated. So for that you will use a flat brush. And then the fan brush again has softer bristles and it helps to diffuse the highlighter really well. So if you're going out to a party and just want a subtle glow, a nice dewy look, use a fan brush. And then we have the blush brushes. I said that right. I must have recorded this at least 3 times saying brush. So a blush brush, a tongue twister there. There's different types again. The one that I'm holding is made from human hair, so it's thicker. When you apply the blush comes out more stronger with this. And then we have the synthetic brushes, which have thinner, softer bristles, so the blush looks more diffused with those. Having said that, I wanted to pick the top brushes that I feel that you must have with you. These will be the KABUKI brush, a powder brush, a highlighting brush, an angled brush for contouring as well as bronzing, a blush brush, a fan brush for highlighting, and definitely a beauty sponge. Now let's move on to the next segment, which will be eyeshadow brushes, and I'm going to be starting with brow brushes. There's typically 2 types of brushes that you would find for brows. One is the spoolie that you would use to comb the hair of your eyebrows, just to bring it to shape before you start filling it in with an angled brush. Among the angled brushes, there's smaller ones with smaller tips and there's larger ones. I personally like to use something that's taller and larger as well as thinner. That way it gives you more precise hair-like strokes when you use it. Just like we have concealer brushes which are bigger for the face, we have smaller concealer brushes typically designed for the eye makeup. And I'm going to be talking about 2 types. One is a flat, larger one compared to the other. This is something that I would normally use either to clean up the shape of my brows, just applying some concealer around my brows. And I also use it to apply a primer on my eyelids. These brushes typically have a sharper tip, which makes it very easy to get a clear-cut line, especially when you're cleaning up areas like if you've smudged your eyeliner and you want to use a concealer just to clean it up or around your brows like I mentioned. And usually I end up using the smaller brushes to cut my crease when I do a cut crease or to cut my lids when I do a more elaborate eye makeup. The larger flat one here is actually an eyeliner brush. That's what e.l.f. calls it. Like I mentioned before, you can pretty much use any brush to do anything, and this is just what I personally prefer and do that I'm showing you guys. That might help you guys as well. Now let's move on to one of the most important brushes that everybody should have, whether you do makeup with brushes or with your fingers. You need to have this brush for your eyes. It's the blending brushes, and there's different types of blending brushes, and I'm going to pick the larger ones. Now let's talk about this e.l.f. brush. I spoke about this before as a concealer brush for the face, and I also told you guys that typically, although it's a concealer brush, I end up using it as a blending brush. Look at the bristles of this brush. It's very dense and it's thick and it's larger. So I usually use this brush when I need a more smoky, pulled out eyes and I want the eyeshadow, especially on top of the crease, to be extremely diffused. That's when I use this brush. Always remember this formula while picking up a blending brush. If the brush is larger, it covers a larger area, and if the brush is smaller, it covers a smaller area. When a brush covers a larger area, the color is more diffused, and when it covers a smaller area, the color is more focused in that area. So the rule to blending eyeshadows is when you use a transition color at the crease, you spread that out further to make it look very soft and blend it out with your skin color. And as you come closer to the duct of your crease, you use a stronger, more defined color to give a nice definition to the curve of your eyes. Which means you will use a larger blending brush to diffuse the color at the crease, and as you move closer to the crease, you will use a more tapered blending brush which focuses a dark color right in the crease. And then there are more stippled blending brushes like this one. This is from Wet n Wild. If you look at the bristles, they're more spread apart. I use these brushes at the very end after I'm done with the entire eye makeup and I've blended everything in. I use this to give the finishing touch because it's so delicate. It doesn't really push your eyeshadows apart or anything like that. It's not harsh on your eyelids. So it gives a very delicate, very soft blending onto your eyeshadows, and you can use this to finish up your eye look. And then we have pencil brushes. These brushes look like blending brushes, but if you look at the tip, they are not as flexible. They look more like a pencil that you would use to write on a paper. That's why they're called pencil brushes. So they're very dense and they're not very flexible on the tip. These brushes are usually used either to smudge a pencil liner or creating that soft definition either in the crease or in the outer corner of your eyes. It can never be used like a blending brush to diffuse a color in a larger area. It's very focused. And then we have the fluff brushes. If you look at this brush, it's so fluffy, and that's why it's called so. And these act as both blending brushes because they're so fluffy, and then flat shader brushes because they're flat. But they give a more diffused, softer look. So you can use this as a blending brush in the crease because they're flatter. You can blend out a more focused color in the crease, or you can use them on your lids when you want the color to appear really soft and more diffused. And then we have flat shader brushes. If you can look at the brush head, it's precise and flat, and that's why they're called so. These are used for shading, as the name suggests. So I use it on my eyelids to shade out colors, or to concentrate a color in a certain area before I blend it out with a blending brush. And then I also use them to apply glitter on my lids and also to highlight my brow bones. And then there are definer brushes. There's the flat ones and the round ones. The flat definer brushes are usually thin. They have a flat edge. These are best for either applying powders, cream, or gel eye products on the eye. The flat brushes, they create a sharp line, so it's very easy to smudge out an eyeliner in the lower lash line as well. And I end up using it with the rounder one, which I typically use either to tightline my eyes or draw out a wing just in the outer corner of my eyes, or just draw out a nice line in the lower lash line area. So I use both the brushes together. And then there are the eyeliner brushes, typically two types. One is the angled one, which looks more like a brow brush. These are used with your gel liner to draw out a wing in your top lash line to get that cat eye look. You can also use it in your lower lash line. And then when I want a very thin wing or a really fine line in my crease, I use this thinner brush. This is actually an artist brush from a craft store, but because it's synthetic, I use it to draw out my eyeliner. And finally, there are lip brushes. If you cannot apply lipstick directly from either the lipstick stick or the lipstick applicator, then you use brushes, or you can also use this to clean up around your lips with a concealer, for which you can use a concealer brush. You don't need a lip brush as such, but I always have this in my stash. Once in a while I do use it, I'll be honest with you, but not very often. So which of the eye brushes would I recommend? Definitely a brow brush, a nice diffused blending brush, a nice crease blending brush, definitely a shader brush, a pencil brush, a concealer brush, and an angled eyeliner brush. One last tip about buying brushes: never buy brushes that are dual-sided. As tempting as it looks, because you might end up getting two brushes in one, it's a disaster, because when you keep it in an upright position in your brush holder, one side always ends up getting damaged. So because there's so much pressure on one side, the bristles end up breaking faster, and it's never worked out for me. So I thought I will share it with you guys. One question that I keep getting asked is, how often do we wash brushes? How do we wash brushes and beauty sponges, and how do we keep them lasting longer? So I want to show you how exactly I do it. First things first, make sure your sink is absolutely clean, because at the end of the day, you'll be using these brushes on your face and eyes, so you want everything to be sanitized. I have a dedicated sink just to wash brushes. And then I fix this cleansing mat from Sigma onto my sink. These have little suction cups in the back, so it helps to hold it in its place and not move around. You get different types of cleansing mats. I know some are really less expensive, the ones that you get in the drugstore, and then there's high-end ones as well. A simple one should do the work. And then I use my brush shampoo again from Sigma. This is called Sigmagic. Sorry, it's out of focus. So what I do with this shampoo is I add just a teaspoon of it with a couple teaspoons of warm water, and I let the dirty brush sit in there for about 5 minutes. Probably I'll put about 5 brushes together, but just to show you, I'm putting one dirty brush in. And then I take the brush and I start rotating it onto the mat, and I will rinse it in between, and then take some more liquid soap and I will start rotating it till the color of the soap changes to white, or it has no residue of the brown left in it. And then I have clean brushes. I lay them flat on a towel and dry them. I do this every time I use the brush. Sometimes you would see me using a brush that is soiled, maybe because I've done a back-to-back shoot, I would do that, but otherwise at the end of the day, after I've used my brushes, I give them a nice wash and make sure they're sanitized. And then I give a nice rinse to my cleansing mat as well, and I dry that as well. And one question that I keep getting asked more often than others is, how do you wash blending sponges? Well, I understand your pains. Let me begin with that. No matter what you do, the residue of brown stays behind, and it has happened to me, and it never gets 100% clean, and I completely understand that, but what we are doing to wash these sponges is completely wrong. I'll tell you how I used to do it, and you guys probably do it the same way. I would take some liquid soap, wet my beauty sponge, and then I would add the soap and keep massaging it till I felt like all the brown, dirty, gooey stuff is gone. But then when I looked at the sponge, I would see that the residue of the brown is still left. So what was actually happening is all the superficial color that was on the outside of the sponge would be gone, but the residue that was left inside of the sponge would still stay there. And I will show you exactly how to clean that up as well. So having learned my lesson, this is how I actually clean it up now. You take any bath soap. Here's a circular one. You can take any shape, any size, it doesn't matter. And what you do is you let the water running and start massaging a damp, dirty sponge against the soap. Keep going in circular motion and keep the water running. And then once a while in between, you go ahead and squeeze the sponge to keep taking off the dirt from it. What the soap does is it not only cleans the sponge on the outside, it goes inside of the sponge and takes out all the dirt as well. So at the end of the day, when you clean the sponge with a bath soap, it looks like new. Absolutely new. There's no residue of brown or any dirt left inside of the sponge, and it looks as good as new. When you wash and sanitize your beauty sponges as well as brushes regularly, it not just looks clean and new, but it also lasts longer. And I feel like when you start with something clean, you always end up doing something clean, and your makeup looks so much better. It doesn't look muddy or murky by so many colors combining with each other. I hope I was able to educate you a little bit about the brushes I use, the brushes I recommend, how I maintain it, how I wash them. I hope this was really useful, guys, and if you want to watch more videos like these, let me know, comment below. And also, I have something really exciting coming up next week, both the videos actually, and as tempted as I am to tell you what it is, you'll have to wait. So until next time, you take care, and don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you like this tutorial. Bye-bye.